Welcome, everyone. It's day 2 of Cyberfest Rebooted. Today, we're going to have show and tell Group B exhibitors. This is the order of events we will have for the show. I'll do an intro for a couple of minutes, then we'll go over house rules and expectations, and then artists will present their work for 50 minutes. And then we'll have our closing for 5 minutes. A little bit about San Francisco Zine Fest. We were founded in 2001 as a gathering place for writers and artists from around the world, but especially the Bay Area. We're typically held as a one-day event at the County Fair Building in Golden Gate Park. Our 2019 festival had about 240 exhibitors and over 5,000 attendees. Due to COVID-19, our 2020 festival spanned 3 weeks, over 21 days, and had lots of zine-related activities and was 100% virtual. San Francisco Zine Fest 2021 is a 9-day festival that's mostly virtual with some in-person workshops and collaborations with local Bay Area bookstores. This is our safer spaces policy. We have it in place when we're in person and also now virtual. We are committed to providing a harassment-free experience for everyone, regardless of gender, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, or religion. We will not tolerate harassment at San Francisco Zine Fest events in any form. Individuals violating the Safer Spaces policy may be sanctioned or expelled from the space or the event at the discretion of any San Francisco Zine Fest organizer. Basically, respect people's opinions, their beliefs, their differing states of being, and their differing points of view. Always get explicit verbal consent before taking someone's photo or crossing other personal boundaries. Be responsible for your actions and be aware that they may have an effect on others regardless of your original intent. A safe and respectful community is everyone's responsibility. I'm going to pause for a little bit because I just said a lot of things. Just take that in. Okay. What is Cyberfest Rebooted? Well, this year, like I mentioned before, it's a 9-day fest. We're going from August 28th through September 5th. We'll have exhibitor show and tell. You're in Group B right now. And we'll have readings, workshops, demos, and interviews. And also artist zines will be sold at local participating bookstores. Our guest of honor this year is Tiny Splendor. And they invited 3 guests, Ocean Escalante, Samantha Espinoza, and Tomiko Sidori. These are guidelines for Zoom. We are using Zoom webinar this year as opposed to, I guess, the Pro or the general Zoom account we had last year. Remember to please keep your video off unless you are presenting. This will prevent lagging. Keep yourself on mute unless you are presenting. For presenters, all of you, if you have a question, ask in the chat. There are chat moderators there. Chat will be available only for panelists. Attendees may ask questions using the Q&A feature. Artists will have 5 minutes to share their work. They may use their 5 minutes however they like. Compliment each other in the chat or just say hi if you'd like. ASL interpretation is provided by local interpreters Nicole Watson and Kevin Abrams. Be mindful for folks who are blind or visually impaired by being specific and descriptive when sharing your work. The webinar is being recorded and broadcast to Facebook and YouTube. Above all, please be respectful. Again, if you're watching in the Zoom webinar, please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions you may have. And if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, ask questions in the live chat. You may be wondering, what should I say? I'm a presenter. What should I say when I'm presenting? Well, first, tell us your name and pronouns, where you're based. If you're based in the Bay Area, mention that as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And then show us your work or read something from your zines and comics. This is the order of the exhibitors today. Take a look. So first we're gonna have Meggie Ramm, then Snake Zines, then Emma Lusich, or is it Lusich? Please correct me later. Thank you. Nebula SF, Nicky Rodriguez, Arantza Peña Popo, Joseph Cotsirilos, Maia Kobabe, Kels Choo, and Indigenous Honeys. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, just so we can take a collective breath, just to calm ourselves. You've all just been invited to the space and are expected to present. So if everyone can just close their eyes, sit straight if you can. Breathe in through your nose, hold it, and then breathe out. Breathe in. And one more time. Breathe in. Thank you. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen one more time, and then we'll start our show. So our first presenter is Meggie. Meggie Ramm, they, them, is a non-binary cartoonist and comic educator. They graduated from California College of the Arts with an MFA in comics in 2017. They've done work for The New Yorker, Everyday Feminism, and Silver Sprocket. They've spent the last 5 years teaching comics to kids across the East Bay and are currently working on their first full-length graphic novel. I'm now going to stop sharing so Meggie can take over.
Am I here?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hey, everybody. I'm Meggie Ramm. My pronouns are they, them. I lived in the Bay Area for 5 or 6 years. I can't remember, but I'm currently in Michigan. And I love comics more than anything. If I could just make comics and teach comics all day, that would be the most perfect thing. One of the things that I have that a lot of people know me for is teaching kids comics, which is a digital zine full of all of my lesson plans from teaching comics to kids for 5+ years. And you can get this on my website. Another thing that I'm kind of known for is this pocketbook. It's called You Will Be Okay, a pocketbook for anxious times. And it's a tiny zine that's full of coping strategies for anxiety attacks, or if you're just feeling anxious. And it also doubles as a coloring book. This is not it. This is just a piece of paper because unfortunately I'm sold out, but you can get it on the Silver Sprocket website. One of my favorite things to do when it comes to comics is make rhyming comics, because why not make things more difficult for yourself? And one of my rhyming comics is this, The Littlest Dungeon Guard. The Littlest Dungeon Guard is part of Sunday Haha, which is a free comic subscription service for kids. Every Sunday, you get free comics. And the Littlest Dungeon Guard is a guard who lives in the dungeon and has to deal with pesky adventurers. and every comic is a lyric, or not a lyric, a limerick. So we've got the littlest dungeon guard so loved her spear. She'd carry it there and she carried it here. If danger came calling for fighting and brawling, she'd swiftly poke it in the rear. But a bunch. My favorite rhyming comic, and probably one of the favorite comics that I've ever done, is this one called The Ballad of Bug. I'm not going to read it out because it's kind of long, but I think the thing that makes it cool is that it accordions out like this, which I really like. One of the things that I'm working on currently is I'm working on 2 different comic books, one of which is called Batcat. And Batcat is about a non-binary bat who is also a cat, which is why their name is Batcat. They love tacos and they're trying to get rid of a ghost who lives in their house. They also kind of look like Kirby. Please don't tell my publisher that. I'm trying to sneak it by. I'm also working on a comic about the Olympics. My partner's family goes to the Olympics every year, not this year, obviously, because of COVID. And I'm writing a comic about tagging along as a completely non-sports person. I know very little about sports, but I'm making a comic about going to the Olympics, as well as some stuff about the Olympic history. And there's a lot of really weird stuff from there. This is not that comic. This is a comic about when we went to the Olympics in Korea. And it's called It's Not That Cold, a Midwesterner's Tale of the 2018 Olympics. I also do a bunch of memoir comics on Instagram. I just printed it out so I had something to show. This one says, are you dating a cartoonist or are you dating a vampire? Does your partner work odd hours? Are they adverse to light? Are they frequently covered in gunk? And will they not go anywhere unless they have an invitation? And also sometimes will they not go then? So that's one of my comics. And some of my memoir comics have ended up on the New Yorker. This isn't the New Yorker, but I'm sure you can probably find out how to get there. Another comic that I'm working on right now, which I'm really proud of, is on my Patreon, and it's called Dear Dad. This is just one of the pages. And Dear Dad is a comic about a young deer coming to terms with her father's death through writing letters to him. And I thought that the pun about deers would make the comic less depressing, but you're gonna have to ask my Patreons about that. And then in my last minute, you can check out some other merch that I have. I have some pins. I've got some Octopus Librarian pins. I've got some cool comic related stickers. I have some Rezo posters. And I also just had some comic shorts. I don't know if you can see them. I don't know if I can get my leg up that tall. But yeah, my name is Meggie Ramm. I love comics, and that's most of my stuff. I think I'm out of time, maybe.
You still have another minute.
Oh, I still have another minute?
Yeah.
Okay, well then in that case, you should come by at for my Teaching Elements of Comics to Kids workshop that is going to be later today, where I talk about all of the different kind of activities that I use with my kids. I'm going to talk about why teaching kids comics is really important and why comics are just important for kids in general. That's like my weird nerd side project where I've been researching a lot of stuff about that. And I'll have stuff from my Teaching Kids comic scene in that workshop as well.
Thank you so much. That was perfect.
Thank you.
I'm going to share my screen again, everyone, and we'll go to our next presenter. Okay, we have Snake Zines. Kate and Frances, both she, her, started Snake Zines in 2015 and have participated in several Zine Fests since then. In each issue of Snake, they explore new themes while experimenting with new materials. Snake includes comics, games, recipes, interviews, infographics, and much more. It's made for all ages and encourages and inspires exploration and creativity. I'm going to stop sharing, and then Snake Zines, you can go ahead.
Thank you. And thanks, Meggie. That was really cool. I am Kate. I use she, her pronouns, and I make Snake with my sister Frances. We are based in San Francisco. When I'm not doing Snake, I like to read. I do textile arts like knitting and sewing and weaving, and I play the bass.
I'm Frances. My pronouns are she and her. And when I'm not doing Snake, I like to play the guitar, read, code, and listen to music.
Yeah, so we started Snake in 2015. And so we've been doing it for about 6 years. And it kind of focuses on experimentation and play and creativity. And for example, in each new issue, we use different mediums and media. And for our most recent issue, which is the outer space issue, it has a blue background with a silhouette of 2 guinea pigs looking through a telescope at the stars. We use white gel pens and white paints, which we haven't done before, but it really helped the space theme.
Yeah. And in each issue, we go through different stages of the process from planning it out to the final product. So this is the rough draft in our notebook of one of the pages from our imagination issue. So here we have our 2 guinea pig characters talking about the brain. So it's a brain infographic. And they're explaining what imagination has to do with the brain.
Yeah, and so that's like the background research and the note taking, and eventually we draw and plan it out and put it here and draw it and color it. I don't know if it's backwards on Zoom. I don't know how well you guys can see that.
So here is our here is the page drawn up on paper, and then we send it off to get printed, and it comes back to us looking like this. So the 2 pages and along with all the other pages in the issue are bound together, and it all looks really nice.
Yeah, so this is the cover of the imagination issue, which has 2 guinea pigs kind of floating in a different dimension.
Yes.
That's like pink and purple and blue.
Yeah.
So those are 2 of our issues. We also have a bunch of other ones that we've done. We have the music issue, which has our 4 main characters walking across Abbey Road, like the Beatles album cover. We have the watercolor issue, which has 2 guinea pigs that learn how to paint and do magic. And some more, including the maker issue, the top secret issue, and the summer issue.
So yeah, those are some of our issues. And if you'd like to learn more or subscribe or order back issues, you can find us at you can email us at contact@snakezine.com, or you can go to our website, snakezine.com.
Yeah, so I think that's all. I don't know how much time we have left.
It's up to you. You still have like another minute and a half kind of left. If you want to share anything else, you can. You can also tell us. I'd love to know, how did you 2 get into zines? Like, what inspired you to start making zines?
Well, I think we were subscribed to a lot of kids magazines when we were younger. And so I think we were like, hey, wouldn't it be so cool if we made our own zines? And originally, in fact, I can get a past issue. They were like very like handcrafted, hand bound. So they were a bit more like this, very like natural and hand done. So a lot of pencil and marker that you can still see, but it's changed a lot, and we've grown a lot with making different issues and stuff.
Yeah, and yeah, at the time we didn't know that they were called zines. We were just like, hey, we can make our own magazines. And so it's been really cool learning about the Zine Fests and taking part in some of them. yeah, and just learning about more zine makers.
Yeah. So thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
How much time do we have left?
You're down to 5 seconds.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to point out that I'm always impressed by how organized the two of you are, because I'm not an organized person. Because you were like, oh, we have this past issue, and you just happened to have it next to you and just pulled it out. You're like, this one. I would have been like, I don't know where it is. It's hidden somewhere in the basement or somewhere. I don't know. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And thanks for organizing this whole event. Like that's, yeah, I'd say that's organized.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We're going to move on to our next presenter. And that presenter is Emma. Emma is a 26-year-old trans woman and zine maker who's living in San Francisco, making cutesy, creepy, crawly comics, most often about wacky cartoon characters who are struggling to cope with work, life, gender, anxiety, or all three in some form or another. They're also a first-time San Francisco Zine Fest exhibitor. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing, and Emma, you can start.
Hi everybody. Yeah, as Anand just said, this is my first time presenting at a Zine Fest. I've been to a couple back where they were in person, and they were really just super inspiring to see all the different ways that zines could exist. But this is my first time presenting stuff that I have. So if my voice is weird, it's because I'm super nervous. Oh my god, thank you for the lipstick compliment. Oh my god. So I have like 3 zines that I kind of want to talk about. One is like my main thing that I work on, and two of them are other ones that I made in the past that I think are kind of cool to talk about. So the first one I made is this little teeny tiny guy called Feelings and Buds. It's about feelings that I had, and it's kind of features these like plant creature guys, people. Oh, I don't want to gender them at all because they're supposed to be abstract, playing musical instruments, and just has kind of I guess like prose, like words behind it that kind of just are expressive. It's just it's like a little tiny single page fold them up zine. I'm gonna read a little bit of it because it's like I won't read the whole thing because even though it's short, you might read it later. So like one of the things, like towards the end of it, it says, "I'm done trying to become done with this. Time to be here now. Overlooking, missing too much. Still, yeah." And the next page says, "Tangerines are delicious. Eat some when you can." And then the last one says, "You can be alone or not. It's normal." And it has this cool person playing a triangle. So yeah, I tend to kind of, like I said, I tried to sum up in my intro, which is intros are awkward. I try to kind of, a lot of my stuff ends up being about like how confusing gender and self is when you think about it for like half a second. This other zine that I have I wrote this when I was like first transitioning, and it was like really tumultuous and stuff. But it's called Is This Helping? And it had, I'm sorry for missing out on descriptions. This has kind of a abstract, like, it's not really abstract. It's like a dress form, like with a statue on top of it, and the statue has flowers kind of like coming out of the broken head of the statue, and it has a lipstick mark on the front of it. And the coat, like the dress form, is made out of coat hangers, and there's like a dress hanging on it. Yeah. So yeah, this one is also just kind of very much about like transition in general, and like it's kind of much more visual in nature. Like this one is supposed to be like a caterpillar creature, and the only thing it says is like, "I feel like I've never blown my nose in my entire life successfully." And like I have this kind of flowery guillotine that means a whole bunch of stuff to me, but it could also mean a bunch to you, or I mean, it could mean a very singular thing to you if you want to. I'm like currently in the process of setting up my Etsy shop. Right now it only has the last comic I'm going to present, which is like my main project I've been working on in the last couple of years. But I'm also going to add these two so they can be gotten if so wish. And the last thing I like about this one is this guy or this person. I say guy a lot. I know that's not good, but that's conditioning for you. I don't know. I like this guy a lot. So yeah, this one is also about kind of transition. There's a lot more words in it in the front half that are kind of just ramblings about how confusing emotions are. My final thing that I've really been putting a lot of my time in over the last couple of years now is kind of a more of a straightforward narrative comic called Quasi and Sudo. The cover here has two young kids in a schoolyard. One of them is a single-eyed bird creature they're all wearing schoolgirl uniform, but the bird creature is magically levitating a broken I guess like pipette in front of a young girl who is also crying, and they're making eye contact, implying that they're going to become friends. So yeah, this is a story about Quasi and Sudo, two best friends who are like struggling to exist in the world as it is. They have to go to work. They have to deal with money and life, even though they're young people. But they both like to collaborate and make fun projects together, because one of them, Quasi, is really involved in science, and the other one, Sudo, is all involved in magic. So when they come together, they make magical scientific things. The example I can show you for the time being is, oh my God. Whoa. When they first get together, they meet this kitty cat who's missing a hand, and they gently attach a robot hand to help him with kitty cat business. So they do kind of stuff like that, general just wacky things to kind of pass the time. But the thing that really gets in the way is that they're both really anxious and deal with a lot of insecurity in themselves, each in their own way. The whole comic kind of starts with Quasi struggling to send a text message and worrying about how her friend is going to respond, and she ends up pacing around the room trying to figure out how best to word things, which is a position that I still find myself in, even though I wrote a whole comic about it. So yeah, this book, yeah,
I'm gonna have to stop you there.
Sorry,
any last thoughts that you just?
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm thank you so much. Yeah, So yeah, if you want to check out my stuff, oh my God, I'm talking too much. Yeah, my stuff is somewhat on my website. My Etsy up top will be updated a little bit more. Yeah, thank you for listening to me talk about things that I didn't know how to explain that well.
You did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn on my camera and then share my screen. And we're gonna have that. Okay. Next up is Nebula SF. They say, I love typography and the visual communication of things. I'm a designer and illustrator based in San Francisco. I believe Nebula SF is here. And I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Go ahead.
Let me stop sharing or share my, hopefully everybody could see me. So yeah, I took a break for a little bit from zines and stuff because we all know it's been kind of difficult. But anyways, so I'm Nebula, NSF. I started this whole project with this little character, which is, this one's made of crayon, but this was what I call Nebula. And it's basically this little creature that crash lands on Earth, and basically through his adventures discovers things about the world. So it takes the perspective of this alien creature and discovers the things around, the city or around the world. And it was kind of interesting because it's more about the oddities of things and the perspectives and not knowing things. And I guess it kind of speaks to where I come from because I'm a son of an immigrant that lived in or grew up in Salinas, working in the fields. And so it takes a lot of these perspectives for myself. I also kind of created his little comic over time, and probably some people have seen it. This is one of the pages. Whoops. I created the language itself. Oh, my screen is doing its little. Hold on. Sorry. It's doing the blur. There we go. He's all right. So one of the pages within it is, his adventures. I love octopuses. I love sea life. And so he takes on these things, but also he kind of questions a lot of things like, what we consider normal, what we consider like this particular thing that somebody said that we just kind of naturally do on a regular basis. And recently I wrote this other one, which is The Seed. And this one, I kind of approached something different where I just allowed the writing itself to kind of take over the story itself. And so this is kind of one of those things that I'll probably be posting up pretty soon. I just finalizing kind of the text and stuff like that. But that's the second one to that. A lot of the other things that I've done are, when I first kind of started, doing zines and attending the zine festivals was I love taking pictures also of pigeons. And I started kind of giving them a voice, you could say, and allowing them to kind of discuss the real world issues within the pigeon's perspective. And so I don't know if most of you have seen this one. The Nebula one is this one. And then recently I also wrote this thing about ramen. So it's, I take a kind of weird perspective on things, kind of allowed myself the discovery of these kind of ideas. And the last thing is, I've done posters before. This is a poster that I did. It kind of really explains my kind of heritage, where I come from and the people that influenced me. Probably people have seen this one, which is the ramen poster, which kind of talks back to the ramen zine. And for the San Francisco Center for the Book, I've been involved in the Roadworks, which happens every year in September. And I've been doing these protest posters. This is Angela Davis. This year, I have an idea of the artist that I'm going to do, or the activist I'm going to do. Last year, or the year before that, was James Baldwin, and before that was Dolores Huerta. And so, in the past, I've also shared my table with my son, which was really kind of influential for me to kind of move on and do these things, kind of show him that you can actually do these things and just kind of enjoy it. And so it's been really great. Thank you for having me again. Thanks, Emma, for everything that, your zines and everybody else that's on the or show and telling today. It's been such a pleasure to kind of share the space with you guys. I don't know how much time I have.
You're doing good. Thank you so much. Any last minute thoughts about where people can find your work?
Yeah, at my Instagram page, there's a link tree that takes you all over the place. So it's, let me see if I could just quickly share my screen. It's Interstellar Astronaut. You could go through and look at other stuff that I do. And in the link tree itself, there's the online shop and a video I did for the Center for the Book and stuff like that. So
perfect. Thank you so much. Yep. All right, everyone. Our next person is Nicky Rodriguez. So Nikki is a queer Puerto Rican comic artist, flatter, and colorist. She has 2 ongoing webcomics. The Unlucky Ones, and The Edge of Nowhere, and The Smoke in the Mirror. In 2018, she started making autobiographical zines exploring mental health, the impermanence of time and memory, her existential ennui, and the meaning of home and homesickness as a member of the Puerto Rican diaspora. Nikki, go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, my name is Nikki. My pronouns are she, her. I was based in the Berkeley, Oakland area for like 7 years, but I moved to Denver because of the pandemic, just like all the things happening with my work. But I'm still exploring like how to continue making zines. And two of my most recent ones are Viajera 2, because I did this one, I think maybe a year or two ago. And my zines are primarily, like mentioned in the bio, like autobiographical zines, just talking about my connection to my queerness and being Puerto Rican, especially as I like came to understand those parts of myself while I was living in the Bay Area. And then this is my most recent zine so far. It's called Pulse. A weird pandemic development I've had is this condition called occipital neuralgia. And it's basically just like, I have really angry nerves in the back of my head. So I get like crazy like headaches and migraines, but it was kind of like many months in the making in terms of like understanding that's what it was and like getting that diagnosis. So it really impacted how I could engage with the way I create, being someone who like makes a lot of things on a digital tablet or who's like hunched over my paper cutter, like making my zines. So it just helped me kind of understand my connection to my body in a way that I hadn't really considered before, just by nature of like, I was always on the move, but in the pandemic, I couldn't really do that. So it's like I got in touch with my physical self more. So it's kind of like a, there we go, kind of sci-fi interpretation, looking at how does the like different representations of like the physical form and how to tie that into like metaphorical ideas, especially in a more genre specific perspective. I kind of hope to expand on this idea in terms of like visualizing the connection to the body and the mind in a more kind of like cyber biopunk way. So this is definitely a concept that might become a series of some short zines if I don't kind of like expand it into a bigger story. And then Viajera is basically a series of zines that talk about the concept of homesickness and like the meaning of home as a Puerto Rican who wasn't born on the island. And once I became an adult and kind of started to explore that through my work, I ended up taking a lot of pictures while I was in Puerto Rico. So these zines are basically like Spanish, Spanglish, little like poetry zines, exploring like small moments or like fragments of memories that I've had while I'm there. And just kind of like juxtaposing it with like kind of abstraction of the photos and layering them together and experimenting with colors. Since being Caribbean, I'm like so drawn to the saturated colors of the area. So it's like really enjoyable. And like I, unfortunately, because of the pandemic and other things, haven't been there very recently, but I do have plenty of pictures over like the past 4 years that I'm hoping to kind of rehash and continue that concept. And this was the first zine in that series, which was like a little less abstract and more exploring the poetry aspects and the words in terms of like, how can I mix up Spanish and English and have them work in tandem to describe a like physical sensation of memory. And I also have like different prints and mini prints like these in my store. I am currently continuing like one of my webcomics called The Unlucky Ones and The Edge of Nowhere. Let me share my screen real quick. There we go. So this is like my store, just shop www.artofnickyrodriguez.com. And then if you just go to my website at artofnickyrodriguez.com, you could find the comic. You can read it in 2 different places right now. And it's just a story about like queer friendship and working together to find a place where you belong when the world kind of seems like at odds with your existence. So yeah, it's a story I really love and that I'm like super enjoying working on. I'm like in it for the long haul because it's like going to be 100 and something pages. But yeah, it updates twice a month, like 3 to 5 pages every update. So that's one thing you could go ahead and do. And if you just head to my website, you could like find me all over social media and things like that. I think that's all I have.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's see who else is next. Just wanted to make sure, is Arantza here? If not, that's totally fine. We will still present their work. I think it helps if I turn on my camera too. Let me share my screen. Okay. Arantza Peña Popo is an angsty Afro-Latinx comic artist, zinester, and animator based in Atlanta, Georgia, and Los Angeles, California. She enjoys making work surrounding queerness, her immigrant identity, and mental illness. She also regularly makes cartoons for The New Yorker. When she's not scribbling, she's roller skating to Mitski and walking her chunky dog, Shakira. You can find her work on arantzapopo.com and Instagram at _ara_Peña_. And then on Etsy.com, it's for under the shops for Arantza Peña Popo. You can also Venmo at Arantza-Popo and PayPal at peñapopo@usc.edu. But I also see a bunch of comments. Is Arantza here? Guess not. Those are some other comments. We'll move on to another person. And if Arantza is able to join us later on, she can present then. I'm going to share again. Our next exhibitor could not make it today because of work. This is Joseph Cotsirilos. He writes, I write and illustrate comics and stories about being Mediterranean and Latino. My work has appeared in places like Ashcan Magazine, Aviary, Interconnected Circles, On Verge, art galleries, Tumblr's homepage, and numerous comic book conventions, and in anthologies like Not My Small Diary and Suzuki. I think I'm mispronouncing that. But in 2018, I won the Arajo Memorial Grant and was featured by the Rock, Paper, Scissors Collective. You can find Joseph's work on josephcotsirilos.com, and you can support the artist at their Venmo, which is J-Cotsirilos. Just a side note on Rock, Paper, Scissors Collective, next weekend, we have 2 in-person workshops that are happening and facilitated by Rock, Paper, Scissors Collective, but you must RSVP. The Eventbrite link is on our website. Spots are limited. There are only 15 spots available, and you must wear a mask. And I believe the September 4th bookbinding workshop is already sold out, as in it's filled up. I believe there might still be a few spots left for the September 5th workshop. So check that out as well. Okay. Next up, we have Maia Kobabe. Maia Kobabe is the author and illustrator of Gender Queer, a memoir at Oni Press, and it was published in 2019. And many short comics, which have been published online on the Nib, the New Yorker, and in print anthologies. Maia is non-binary, queer, trans, and uses he/him/er pronouns. Maia, if you are here, please turn on your screen and you can go ahead.
Hello. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm very glad to be here. I so enjoyed everybody's presentations before this. I hope you can see my screen. I have been attending SF Zine Fest, I think every year since 2013. So it's nice to be able to be here virtually, even if I can't be there in person. And I have about, I think around 25 zines available in my Etsy shop. I'll hold them up and show them to you and then maybe talk a little bit more about some of the more recent ones, because if you've seen me before, you may know some of them. So some of the zines I have are all of the short comics I've published for the Nib. Most of these are either nonfiction journalist comics or sort of personal memoir pieces that range about, these two are sort of about queerness and being, I guess, a queer adult in a world that's not always friendly towards that. And then I have, this one's about a history and this one's sort of about environmentalism. So they range around those sorts of topics. I also have, a lot of my work is memoir or autobiographical. So I have a whole set here of like zines of different sizes that are about memories. This one called The Sun is about a ritual that my family has done to sort of welcome in the new year at the winter solstice. And it's about a kind of family and food and marking the passage of time. I also have one called The List, which is about learning to read, because I am quite a reader and was a longtime librarian, but also someone who was dyslexic and didn't learn to read until I was like almost 12 years old. So that's very important to me. I have this little one called Snake Memories, which is literally different memories that I have about snakes in my life because they're one of my favorite animals. So I was very curious when the snake zine siblings were speaking. I was like, is there an issue about snakes? If not, maybe pin that for a future one. I also have this little comic called Things That Encourage Me to Keep Making Art, which is different things that art teachers said to me when I was young that inspired me to keep drawing and keep making work when I was like in elementary school. And then these two short pieces that I did originally for the Baileys, which is the wonderful Bay Area queer and POC comics collection, organized, edited by Lawrence Lindahl, who I know presented in the group A. So this one is about watching the movie Love Actually and wishing it was queer. And this one called Blackberries is about sort of homesickness, environmentalism, and picking, like foraging for blackberries. I also do write a fair amount about fandom and pop culture. So I have a series that I've done in collaboration with a podcast called Fansplaining. They're all memories that have to do with fandom. The first one that I wrote is about the very first time ever that I read fan fiction, which was a Lord of the Rings parody story that interestingly was introduced to me by a teacher. I also wrote one about one of the two hosts, Flourish's experience of attending a midnight book release party for one of the Harry Potter books at a Barnes & Noble. And the most recent one, which is just, this is the most newly available, and I'll be posting on Instagram probably within the next month, is about one of the hosts' love of the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I also have two more Harry Potter comics. This one is trying to reckon with J.K. Rowling's increasing transphobia and sort of terrible politics as a longtime Harry Potter fan and someone who really, I held Harry Potter fandom as a big piece of my identity, and now as an adult is trying to figure out what to do with that. And then this one is just fully just queer Harry Potter fan fiction comics about what if Dean and Seamus were gay dads with 3 adopted children and who were also going to Hogwarts, and what would that be like? So that's some of the fun stuff. I also wanted to show 2 more fictional comics. This one is one that I think a lot of people maybe know me for or found me for online. It's called The Non-Binary Bunny. It is a retelling of the children's classic, The Runaway Bunny by Margaret Weiss Brown, but it is about a young bunny trying to explain sort of non-binary feelings and identity to our mother and using a lot of metaphors of nature. So metaphors of being not one thing or another, of being a creature who can fly and walk, a creature who lives in and out of water or in and out of shade and shadow, and those sorts of themes. And then this one is also one of my newer works. I had hoped to debut this at SF Zine Fest last year. This is a 20-page short story about 2 teenagers who are building like rocket ships or spaceships really, and their friendship and their sort of like scientific collaboration in a near future in which faster than light travel is possible and also available to be built by high school students. And then I will show the most recent zines I've made. These are all from the past 12 months. I have one called Evacuations. This is a story about living in Northern California and having to face apparently annual fire dangers and fire scares and evacuations. And the fact that I have now hosted friends who've been evacuated 3 out of the past 4 years, and I won't be surprised if it happens again soon. So it's specifically about these memories of hosting different friends who had to leave their homes. I also have done this very small zine called Self-Care Tips from Tumblr, which is just pieces of advice on how to look after yourself from the website tumblr.com. So that's also on all of these, almost all of these comics also can be read on Instagram. My Instagram is @redcoldsparks. And also on my website, which is redcoldspress.com. So you can read a lot of them online for free. And then the last two I'll show is one called Gifts. This is about trans, non-binary, gender feelings and sort of trying to think about your body as a gift, even when there are parts of it that you don't like or identify with. And it is a zine that unfolds out into an accordion fold so that people can either set it out and sort of display the whole thing or read it sort of page by page like a book. And I wanted it to be kind of flexible, as is my relationship to my own gender and body. And then this is the last one, similar, unfurling, also a accordion fold gender zine. I have a feeling that's my time.
Thank you so much for sharing all of those. All of them actually made me think of one of my students and their families and how I can recommend your work to them. So thank you for sharing all those.
I hope we can chat in person next time. I love seeing your work too. Thank you so much for hosting. One of the pleasures of this is getting to see you and the other moderators chat. Anyway, thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Next up, we have Kels Choo. Kelsey Chu is a Hawaii-raised girl self-publishing comics, zines, and other art in Colorado. Working in a variety of mediums, her comics and illustrated work are inspired by the colors, nature, food, and folklore she grew up surrounded by in Hawaii, as well as general monsters and magic. Kels is here, so I'm going to stop sharing and ask Kels to turn on their camera.
Hi. Hello. Thanks so much for having me. It's very intimidating going after all of these really awesome zine folks. This is my first time participating with San Francisco Zine Fest. So my name is Kels Choo. Pronouns are she, her. I'm not based in the Bay Area, although I used to visit every so often when I was younger. But I am now based in Colorado Springs. Oh, thanks for complimenting my shirt. So I have a bunch of different zines that are available on my website. I've kind of been working off and on some things recently, but it has been a while. So some of the zines that I have, this is one of my first longer ones that I made called Third Sight. And it's about some monsters falling in love. So there's a little fox demon girl and she has a third eye. And then there's like a little hairy guy. So this was like one of my first longer ones that I did, which I really still like. I also have a couple other smaller ones. The Wallflower, this is also one of my early ones that I still really enjoy, and it's about a little ghost feeling kind of out of place. I feel like a lot of my work is involved with like feelings of belonging or feelings of place and home. This one is also called Fluffy. This one's like about being complimented about being cute, but also the downsides of that as well. As like a very short, small person, it's conflicting for me. So that's what that one is about. I also have one called Happy Home, which is just illustrations of like still lives of cute objects that I've collected in my house, and some like a short, I guess, poem to go along with it. I moved a few years ago from Chicago, and so I've been really involved in the Chicago zine and comic scene there. And moving away was really hard for me because I went to college there, and then I lived there for a few years. So I met lots of great people and collected lots of cool, weird things there. So this is kind of about moving to Colorado and kind of still holding all those memories in sentimental objects. And after I moved here, I really also miss like good food and like food from home in Hawaii. So this one is just also just illustrations of Hawaii food, which made me very, very hungry making it. But I also have some prints of these as well. That was a really fun one. And I definitely want to make some more of these because there were a bunch of illustrations that I had done sketches of, but I didn't complete them for this one. So I'm probably going to make a couple more issues of that. This was one that I made in Chicago, but more recently got reprinted in Risograph, which I really liked. And this was also about kind of like positive feelings about change and kind of like having a lot of opportunities. And kind of like not sure where to go with like the doors that are open for you, but windows instead. And one of the more major projects that I really liked that I worked on a few years ago now, but I have like other, like a series of stories in mind for these that I just need to make, is Coven of Wellington Woods. It's about a group of witches who become friends, and it was originally printed in the group chat anthology for Palm Press, and that whole anthology was about just really cute friendships. So this is one that I have, and this is the one that I'm going to be sending to have available for sale in bookshops in San Francisco. And then I'm also sending, I just recently got some newer like shimmer covers for it, so I'm going to be sending the shimmer cover ones. And I also have a bunch of other merch available, like stickers, pins, and like different prints as well. This one is like kind of, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like kind of shiny holographic. And my main project that I have been working on over the last couple years, it has been, I'm also organizing a Zine Fest, but in Colorado Springs. So Pikes Peak Zine Fest is kind of the main like project that I've been working on here in the Springs, and trying to help out other Zine Fests. I did some art for Hawaii Zine Fest that I also have some merch for here. But I'm not sure if they haven't done stuff recently, but I am hoping that they will do stuff again once the pandemic is a little bit like over. So yeah, and then I also, the most recent thing that I did was this little free zine that I'll be posting online too, which is just like an intro to what zines are. For a lot of people here don't really know what zines are and kind of need instruction on like how to make them and things like that. So we're putting together like little DIY kits and you know, to give people info on how they can start making their own zines. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for having me. This has been really awesome.
Yay, glad to hear it. Yeah, trying to transition during the pandemic from an in-person festival to a virtual fest was a challenge last year as well, but yeah, it's been really cool just to see everyone.
Yeah, I definitely was like so glad to still participate in virtual ones or have talks, because being isolated, you really realize how much you need to see other zine people and comics people, because we're just like holed up alone making things by ourselves a lot. So yeah, so thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for participating. All right, next up, we have our final presenter, and that is Indigenous Honeys. I actually got to meet them, or one of the folks in Indigenous Honeys yesterday, day before. I don't know, everything's kind of just blending in. Indigenous Honeys is an interdisciplinary arts collective that's dedicated to cultivating space for Indigenous zinesters, artists, writers, and storytellers. Our work, or their work, centers the voices, experiences, realities, histories, perspectives, and talents of Indigenous peoples. They are dedicated to promoting self-published material because they recognize self-publishing as an accessible and autonomous strategy that interrogates settler colonialism and capitalism. I believe we have multiple presenters from Indigenous Honeys, so I'll stop sharing and they can start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle. My pronouns are she, they. I am tuning in from Tongva Cahuilla Serrano lands, or also known as Ontario, California. And I am one of the members from Indigenous Honeys. Thank you so much for the introduction, Anand, and thank you to everyone who has shared their work. It's really exciting to be on here, deeply humbling as well. And you will hear from our other members, Shanti and Marina, shortly. Pauline is one of our other members that was not able to make it. And so for our zines, just a little bit of background on them. They center the perspectives and histories and realities and knowledge of Indigenous peoples from various communities throughout Turtle Island. And we have zines on storytelling, tattoo revitalization, ancestral memory, body sovereignty, mental health, sexuality, Indigenous futurisms, and plant and animal relatives. We have also previously worked as a distro across various geographies. Some of the artists have included Semana, Kim, and Hodovice. Semana, an Otham person, Kim and Hodovice, Muskogee creators. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Shanti, who will share a bit more about the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, everyone. My name is Shanti. My pronouns are she, they. I'm currently located on occupied Muwekma Ohlone lands, also known as San Jose, California. And yeah, I'm just going to show you some of the zines that we have, and this one will also be available at the San Francisco bookstore that will be participating. So this one's called Unsettled. You want to be an Indian for Halloween. And in this one, we kind of go over the impact of Halloween costume, Native Halloween costumes, and what it means for Native peoples, and going into the missing and murdered Indigenous women narrative. And then at the end, there will also be some resources that you can look up in order to see how you can help. And then we also have a collective zine called Unsettled Bumblebees. This one specifically focuses on information you can get to save specifically the rusty patched bumblebee. And it's a little hard to see, sorry. So we kind of give information about the rusty patched bumblebee and why the numbers are declining. And then give you an overview of where the bees exactly are and how you can actually create your own little bumblebee nest. And then some more resources on what honey things you can do, and also the more resources in case you don't want to build your own bumblebee's nest, but you're interested in looking more into bee conservatory. And then I'm just going to quickly go over some of the zines that will also be in our Etsy shop. I need to add 2 more of those. This is one that I made. It's called Flourishing, and it's literally just a little mini zine with flowers, because flowers are very important to me as a person and for my Indigenous ancestry. And then I have this one, From My Heart to Yours by Marina, who will be presenting next. And it's kind of one of those unfold zines that you can see right here, that you can also kind of set up on your table if you would like. And then this one's called I Carry Home on My Back, also by Marina, also a mini zine. And this one kind of unfolds neatly into different collage turtles, super cute. And we'll also be adding that to our Etsy. And I'll pass that on to Marina.
Thank you, Shanti and Michelle. And I also want to thank the organizers of the Zine Fest and all the presenters. It's so amazing to see everyone's work, and Shanti and Michelle were like behind the scenes hyping everyone up. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So just this is our Instagram page. So if you want to, get in contact with us, we often, post any kind of presentations or workshops that we're doing, and we're going to be working on some in the near future. So yeah, please definitely stay in contact. We love Zinsters and being part of the community. And this is our Etsy page. As Shanti shared, we do have some of the titles that she shared uploaded on our Etsy, but we also have additional ones, and we'll continue to update as we go. So just quickly, I'll quickly say that a couple of them that we have here, we have Indigenous Sensations, which is a zine on different ways that we experience our senses through an Indigenous perspective. We also have, as Michelle mentioned, our fourth member, Pauline. She's Autumn, and she created this zine called Indigenous Ink. So this zine is based on tattoo revitalization and some of Shanti's work below. And yeah, and I think that's it. So I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. I also just noticed that Arantza, you were just able to join the webinar. So if you would like to present, you can. Here, I will. Oh, you are here. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about the late entrance. I just came back from school, but I kind of only have one zine to share right now, but I think it's a pretty extensive one. So this is my zine. It's called Lavender Scare, and I don't know if the words are backwards, but yeah, it's kind of this Riso, it's like a 40-page Riso zine. It's kind of like, it's practically like kind of an allegory for like queerness and my sexuality, I guess. It follows this girl trying to escape a pedal monster. It's all Riso, 3 colors. I think it's pretty, I don't know. It's my first time doing Riso, and it was pretty, extensive process. It took a long time. And this was printed by Tiny Splendor in Oakland, California. So Berkeley, so shout out to Sana for printing this out. But yeah, this is really it. What else can I say about it? Yeah, I wrote it out. I just drew it out with like color pencil, and then I colored digitally, and then it's Riso. So it's kind of like it's like kind of screen printing, but with like the expediency of like a Xerox printer. And so I really want to try making like more Riso scenes. And yeah, you can either like just DM me on my like Instagram, and my Etsy shop is still kind of open. And I also like live in LA, so like, if anyone wants to just like pick up a zine or something, or wants me to drop one off, I'm really down. I make a lot more zines. I don't have them with me, unfortunately, but I like a lot more zines as well. So you can check them out on my Etsy or my website or whatever. And yeah, that's really it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As Arantza mentioned, Tiny Splendor is our guest of honor this year. Okay. That was a lot of presenters. I'm glad so many of you had an opportunity to present today, and it was wonderful hearing from all of you. These are upcoming events for Cyberfest. Today's August 29th. We still have drawing prompts. It's family-friendly drawing games with Lauren Davis, who's handling all our tech right now. She's also one of the organizers. Then we have teaching drawing elements of comics to kids. It's a workshop with Meggie, who also presented. That's from 3 to 4 today. And then we have show and tells Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night from 6 to 7:15 p.m. And then we have our annual Thinking Captions zine reading with 3 of our invited guests, guests that Tiny Splendor invited to be part of our festival. And they are Ocean Escalante, Samantha Espinoza, and Tamiko Sidori. One of the things that exhibitors have been mentioning, and we haven't officially announced yet, but we'll tell you right now, we are collaborating with Bay Area bookstores. And that means that the 2021 exhibitors zines will be available for purchase in September at these 3 bookstores. They are Silver Sprocket, Mission Comics and Art, and Dog-Eared Castro. Right now, we were able to send some zines and works to these stores, but as we're compiling more, we'll get more of them out next week as well. And we will let the exhibitors know where their works are being sold as well in a separate email later on. We would really like to thank our 2 Bay Area ASL interpreters, Nicole Watson and Kevin Abrams. Thank you so much. You've had to interpret for a lot of folks today. Also want to recognize Intersection for the Arts. Know that SF Zine Fest is a member of Intersection for the Arts, which is a bedrock Bay Area arts nonprofit that provides people working in arts and culture with fiscal sponsorship and resources to grow. I'm just going to quickly check to see if there are any questions. And if not, that's really it. That's our show and tell. Just remember, we have more events coming up later on. So we hope you'll